So multiplicity is an attempt to overcome this colonial baggage, and it is also an attempt to explain the heterogeneous life worlds that we encounter in African and African diasporic contexts. So approaching Africa as multiple for us also means to take a relational perspective. Relationality is another theoretical keyword in our joint work. And the understanding from which we operate is Africa as constituted by relations and as ever-changing relations. So we don't look at Africa as the result of interactions, but we look at the relations in which African life worlds emerge. And the third key term we use is reflexivity, and this refers to the self-referential character of the processes that we study. And it also emphasizes the necessity for us as scholars to reflect on the work we are doing. So this kind of reflexive approach to African studies is also key.
I'm Innocent Msindo, the director of the Rhodes University African Studies Center, which is a member of Africa Multiple. We are based at Rhodes University in South Africa. Africa Multiple operates at 5 locations, which is Rhodes University, which I mentioned, the University of Bayreuth here in Germany, the University of Joseph Kizebo, which is in Burkina Faso, and University of Lagos, which is in Lagos, Nigeria, as well as Moi University. We have evolved over the years from the first phase of the cluster, which focused mainly on researching around broader themes such as moralities, learnings, knowledges, affiliations, and so on, to more specific research thematic fields that we have collectively developed together. But what is very critical in that development is that we seek to create enduring entities that will exist beyond the term or period of Africa Multiple, and entities which will continue to have institutional support in the different universities where they are domiciled. So we are establishing, therefore, structures that are meant to last beyond any individual project.
Our experience with Pixas is the foundation on which we build our collaboration now, our internationalization efforts for the PhD training in collaboration with our AMRCs on the African continent. So we have already developed plans with the representatives of early career at these universities and also at Salvador de Bahia, our special partner for diaspora studies.
My research focus in terms of geography is Ethiopia, Sudan, and Tunisia. And we are looking at what major political transformations such as revolutions or protest movements, social movements make possible for queer political subject formation. And in fact, through this project, I try to approach the question of the reconfiguring African studies, because I'm deeply interested in the subject of African studies and knowledge production as well. And I think one thing I should really mention is the fellowship, the continuous fellowship that we have within the cluster that brings scholars from the continent and elsewhere, and all of these continuous amazing conversations that happen.
Putting together an exhibition which is a photograph exhibition, and it's meant to be accompanied by a set of essays which follow a series of interviews that I did with the people whose photographs are featured in the exhibition. And the idea behind the entire exhibition was to photograph people's hands and get them to talk about what it is that they've done with their hands. Often people talk about history as something that has happened to them, and I was curious what happens if we reflect and look at it from their own perspective of what happens when people talk about history as something that they have done. And very often, hands are the site of action that people do things with. And so I was curious to put together an exhibition that will be a reflection of this.
As a center now, we do like yearly, for example, workshops that can actually bring in people to Moi. But more than that, we actually, like every year, we do an international conference. As we come to the close of these projects, we have actually done like 4 international conferences, and this was really, very exciting, so to speak. In fact, one we just did it just after they had allowed people to go out of their countries, just after COVID had slightly eased. So we did the first conference, and we really had a big participation. But our greatest one was one that we did in 2023, which is what we are calling inaugural Moi University International Conference on African Studies, and we really had participations from, the different locations, even people from Brazil who had been collaborating quietly also came in.
With the Africa Cluster Center and the focus on knowledges as a research section, we have been able to interrogate the IFA system and bring out from it the knowledge that it contains. And such knowledge includes philosophy, it also includes social and political thoughts of the African people that are not necessarily resident in Africa, but also that do have universal values.
So, in terms of real documentable impact, I can say that my research has been able to, in a way, bring some changes to the curriculum of English studies, and of course, in terms of extensive networking relationship with Africans, both in the continent, and in the diaspora.
The Center Africa Multi so far organized several scientific meetings, and particularly 5 international conferences on up-to-date issues. And in Burkina, like the issue of COVID-19, the issue of security. The center has also set up several research projects on different themes like migration, violence in the context of COVID-19, globalization, and health.
Africa Multiple Cluster Center of Excellence is a very strong and beneficial collaborative project.
Our section, as a knowledge section, has contributed in terms of public engagement within the university related to gender topic, and that's led to a public conference on gender issue in academics. In terms of commitment, in terms of engagement, we can also notice I was talking about the ministry, people from the ministry, participating in some of our symposia.
So bringing all this on board during these past 6 years has reinforced our research results and also has helped us to take into account some of the activities like having workshops in collaboration of the Gender and Development Lab.
The whole idea behind the Africa Multiple Cluster of Excellence is that of reconfiguring history of African study. You will see that it comes from the global north. But the whole intellectual exercise of the center of this initiative is really to reorient the notion of African study so that the voices of the global south can be heard in terms of what it means to actually do African study.
My interest is from the musical aspect, so discipline of music, and then possibly have it published in this journal. So those kinds of opportunities, and then from an archival perspective, looking at the collections that we have on the African continent and looking at the state in which they are in, and trying to find remedies or solutions with regard to digitization, which is kind of the very everyday thing about the archives, but it's also looking towards the future, and especially here on the continent where many countries are still refusing to digitize collections.
Especially in the world as it is changing, and with our continent so young, it is very clear that Africa will be a major player in the future, and it is important we know where we're coming from and we start to explore the indigenous knowledge. The Africa Multiple have done quite a lot in this direction, and in addition to what they've done, they've really shone light on it and have helped to inspire others to go into this area and actually start to interrogate our past, interrogate what we're doing, so that the future can really benefit from the African continent. We are very happy to be collaborating with the Africa Cluster within the University of Lagos, as well as the Africa Multiple in general. We hope that they will be a part of the Cluster 2.0, because I do believe their work is unfinished and it will be a loss to humanity if it isn't.